Hello and welcome to day 9 of our 14-day roller coaster road trip across America's amusement parks. In this episode we'll visit Kings Island, home to 16 roller coasters. It's a chunky roller coaster bingo card to tick off. This park is huge and we have a lot of land and attractions to cover too. Where the blue side of Racer does your bag go, as some of the rides require an upcharge locker and some are just good to throw them on the platform. It can get a bit confusing and I'm here to help you. Also, I'll cover some tips on how to guarantee yourself a night ride on the Beast. With faffy pauses and operations around the fireworks show, how do you make sure you don't miss out on this legendary rite of passage for any roller coaster enthusiast? All of this and more coming up on day 9 of the USA roller coaster road trip. Hey, this is Stu for Out and Back Travel. I make videos like this one in the hopes that it can inspire your own theme park adventures. If you do enjoy the video or find it helpful in some way, please help me out on YouTube by smashing that like button, thank you. You join us on day 9 of our 14-day summer USA roller coaster road trip. Due to a great value fly drive package, we flew with Virgin Holidays to Boston, where we started our 2-week jaunt. Starting off at Six Flags New England, we travelled up through New York State towards Niagara Falls before venturing along the shores of Lake Erie via Cedar Point of course, then across towards Chicago with a quick detour to the Wisconsin Dells before driving down through Indiana to Ohio, where we're now on our return leg of our trip back towards Massachusetts. In the last episode we arrived at Kings Island for the last few hours of operation and to get some bonus night rides. My family have been lucky enough to be visiting Kings Island for 20 years with our first visit in 2004. Many times over those years we've stayed at the Super 8 Mason, Ohio. It's our go-to hotel as its location is around the corner from Kings Island. You will still of course need a car, this is America after all. Although the hotel does offer a shuttle service to the park, however I've never used it, but I have seen it waiting to pick people up. The staff are always super friendly, so I'm sure they'll be willing to help you if you were wanting to use the shuttle. There's a good choice of restaurants nearby which make for a greatly convenient location, so we booked the Super 8 as normal as we always would do, but the hotel had been upgraded and was undergoing a refurbishment to become a quality inn, which is fantastic. So the room was a lot nicer, a lot posher, with a fridge, microwave and coffee maker. This cost us £118 for 2 nights, or around $150, which for 2 nights is not bad value at all. You also get of course free parking and a breakfast included as well. So overall a great base to stay if you're thinking of a motel that's quite affordable near Kings Island. So we've got a full coaster bingo card for Kings Island. There's technically 16 credits. However, the Great Pumpkin Coaster is a forbidden kids credit. You need a child to ride it, so we won't count that one. So 15 credits in total. You've got Adventure Express, a wacky arrow mine train that uses a bit of the terrain and has an unusual enclosed lift hill with a show scene. The Backlot Stunt Coaster is a multi-launch thing by Premier Rides, obviously formerly the Italian Job Coaster. Banshee is a B&M inverted coaster, the pinkest of the B&M inverted coasters. Bat is an arrow suspended swing coaster, increasingly rare type of coaster, where you hang underneath the track and the cars are free to swing from side to side. Beast is the world's longest wooden coaster with 7,361 foot of track. Diamondback is the B&M Hypercoaster with the old water squoosh at the end. Flight of Fear is an enclosed looping coaster, a bit like a rock and roller coaster from Disney but made by Premier. Invertigo is the only Vekoma Invertigo left that hasn't been relocated and it still rides fairly smooth. You've got Mystic Timbers, a GCI on Backwoody, the What's in the Shed coaster, the old marketing hype. Orion is a B&M Giga Coaster with a 300 foot drop. You then have the classic 1972 Racing Woody Racer, which has two sides, making it two creds, thank you. So Racer Blue and Racer Red. Snoopy's Soapbox Racer is a family boomerang coaster, new for 2024. Woodstock Express is a classic family wooden coaster by PTC. You find these at a lot of the King's Parks in America. Great kind of layout, lots of fun. Woodstock's Aerial is a suspended kiddie coaster, the old hang and bang. So I do have all the credits at Kings Island, apart from Snoopy's Soapbox Racer, thanks to previous visits, but just for fun, let's see how many of the 15 we can tick off today. Last night, which you can see in our Indiana Beach video, we did the last 2 hours of the day, so we've already ticked off Banshee, Orion, and Mystic Timbers. So there's 12 left to go, let's see how we get on. Kings Island was open from 10 AM till 10 PM on our visits. It's a park that usually has nice long operating hours, so it's a good day to pace ourselves, especially on such a long road trip. It's always nice to have days where we don't have to rush from cred to cred and take it a little bit easier, if you can take it easy when you're visiting a park as big as Kings Island. We did look into getting the Snoopy's Soapbox Racer cred, but the queue was already over 40 minutes and I just can't be asked to queue for that to kind of kiddie cred. But not to completely destroy the jeopardy of coaster bingo, let's pretend we'll try and come back later. Racer then was the first cred of the day, but oh no, the bin of despair is in this half of the queue line, officially signalling that only the blue side is running and the red side is forbidden. It's a great ride and the park have done a lot of track work over recent years and it's running very smoothly with bucket loads of airtime. It is a shame that it wasn't racing. Fingers crossed it does race later in the day. Continuing to make a loop of the park in a clockwise direction, Flight of Fear was up next. This is the enclosed launch coaster with a spaghetti bowl of track and inversions. It is showing its age a little, I can definitely relate to that, but still an acceptable ride. Staying with Premier launch coasters, it was a 30-minute wait for the backlot stunt coaster. Kings Island are generally great at dispatches, so the line does move up a lot, so it wasn't a chore at all. This coaster offers a punchy launch, especially for a family coaster, into the upward helix spiral, which kind of almost makes me grey out. Some effects were present for the mid-course show scene, and bursting out the billboard butthole is always fun. It's just a shame it's lost its splashdown effect. But all in all, a great fun ride and a lot more effects working than you find on the Cannon's Wonderland version. Ugh. Following the claw marks on the floor, it's time for the Beast and we're looking at a 30-minute wait. Built in 1979, this is still unbelievably the longest wooden roller coaster in the world after over 40 years. It is a great ride, but in recent years Cedar Fair have taken this to the vets and had its nudges off. They do seem to do this with all the wooden coasters, lots of trims, just slow down any possibility of fun or woodness or I guess lawsuits. So although the Beast is still quite a violent wild ride, it's maybe at like 50% volume rather than 100% volume of yesteryear, so it's not quite as completely wild and out of control as it was back in the day. To console ourselves, we rode the better wooden roller coaster, Mystic Timbers, again around a 30-minute wait. Mystic Timbers does require an upcharge locker, SeaWorld style, so you can pay a couple of dollars for a one-time use or a fee to have all-day access to the locker system and move it between the lockers for the rides that need them. And of course you have to put in a really complicated 4-digit code and a 7-digit code. Honestly, it's a right faff. So the rides at Kings Island which need the upcharge locker are of course Mystic Timbers, Orion and Banshee. Then you've got other rides like the Beast has a bag cage on its platform. The Bat has a bag cage on its platform, but we could also take the bags with us in the floor of the car. Diamondback also has the bins on the station platform. So overall it's a bit of an inconsistent system. But in some respects, I'm glad you don't have to have a locker for every ride, like you do at SeaWorld and Busch Gardens parks. For lunch we went to the Fest House. This is the standard Pusher trailer restaurant. You find an almost identical clones at the Busch Gardens Park, which is quite interesting. We actually sat outside on a little patio in front of the Viking ship entrance, listening to some live acoustic guitar music, where we sampled some great beers and even got the famous blue ice cream. Whilst we're on food, later in the day we found these real cut potato fries, which were artery clogging delicious. What better way for our lunch, beer and ice cream to settle than to go on a spinning ride? As you guys know, the partner I have access to absolutely loves spinning rides, me not so much, but we've never ridden a Zamperla Endeavour, basically their new version of an enterprise style ride. It was a 40-minute queue, which did give us some nice shots of the back of Banshee. Compared to the coaster lines, this moved a bit slower, but it was okay. The ride itself was fine. It was unusual to be sat by yourself, spinning around and upside down as the cars are kind of one person in a row. It overall is an interesting ride. I would definitely go on one again. It wasn't too bad on the spinning scale. Next up was Adventure Express, the park's fantastic terrain mine train coaster. This has had a bit of a theming glow up since my last visit. I love to see an old ride getting some attention. The ride itself is just a joyous hoot. By this point of the day, both sides of the racer were now running, so we had to join to tick off the red side on our coaster bingo cards. So, boom, tick that off. It's great to see a racing coaster actually racing, as obviously some of them in America do go down to just one side quite a lot. Windseeker was next. I didn't get any footage as the cycle after we got off broke down. It's always unnerving to do the Starfly-like attractions. I do prefer the chunkiness of the Mondial versions, especially when you're going so high up in the air. Diamondback was number 10 on the coaster bingo card. This one always has quite a lengthy queue and 30 minutes didn't seem too bad. Again, the fantastic Kings Island operations were sending those trains out regularly, keeping the line moving. I really want to like Diamondback. It's a great big silly B&M hypercoaster with those cute Sneck Zero cars and obviously the water sploosh ending, but I do find it has a bit of a rattle. I hate to be Debbie Downer / Rosemary Rattler, but I haven't gelled with this one and I really want to like it. I definitely need to have more goes in it. We sat on the back row and the partner I have access to actually got soaked by the sploosh, much to everyone else's amusement. Haunted Castle was next. It's supposed to be 10 minutes, but I think it took about 40 minutes and it was a painful room full of screaming kids. But it's a fantastic Omni-Mover ride. Of course, it was previously a Scooby-Doo, so interesting to see a decommissioned Scooby-Doo ride where you have guns to zap things. Pretty good to see one with a bit of a chunkier ride hardware system than the usual Boo Blasters. Browsing the merchandise store, the park definitely has confidence in their legal team with these shirt designs. I'm sure I've seen these logos before somewhere, but the merch game was strong at Kings Island and we definitely came away with some made to frill posters. It's always an actual hike to get to the Bat as it's so far away from the rest of the park, even if the line is short. But it was around 20 minutes for us, so not too bad at all. This one is the rare suspended swing coaster where the cars hang under the track and are free to swing from side to side. This one's a little on the aggressive side actually, it's quite thrilling. It's a great ride, so it is worth the old slog of walking so far out to get to it. The time is now 7:30 PM, so let's check in on those wait times. The Bat is 30 minutes, Beast is 80 minutes, Diamondback 45, Flight of Fear 60, Invertigo 45, Mystic Timbers is down, Orion 75, Racer Blue or Red are both 15 minutes, see the park counts them as 2 creds, thank you very much. Soapbox Racers is 30 minutes, Woodstock Express 30 and Woodstock's Aerial 30 minutes. The park was definitely getting progressively busier as the day got on and we were lucky to have waited up to now about half an hour for each of the coasters and about 45 minutes for the Endeavour really. Mystic Timbers did reopen at this point, so we're able to jump in the line with a relatively short wait. Apologies for not doing the kids coasters, it's just not a good use of the time riding a family boomerang or the hang and bang. So I'd always prioritise riding some of the best roller coasters in the world, the likes of Orion, Diamondback, the Beast, Mystic Timbers, over the kiddie creds. Sorry, not sorry. So let's talk about the Beast night rides. The time is now around 9 p.m. and the Beast Night Ride is definitely looming closer, as this infamous wooden coaster is set in the forest and uses the terrain. It obviously gives a legendary night ride, known not only to roller coaster enthusiasts but the local crowd too, so it gets huge lines as the night draws on. It's one of those, go to the bathroom, make sure you're empty, make sure you've packed your snacks and drinks and your patience pants because you're in for a long haul. You want to get into the line before 9:25 because around 9:30 p.m. they're going to close the queue and stop operations while the nightly firework and drone show happens. Now, if you're in the queue before the time they close the line for the fireworks, you do get to stay and wait for the operations to resume, but obviously it's going to be about a 30 to 40 minute pause. To be fair, we did move up quite a lot during the downtime for the fireworks, as lots of people got annoyed and left the queue line because they couldn't bother to wait it out. What they're doing, they're missing out on one of the most legendary night rides in the world, but it was good for us as it meant we moved up and pretty much we're right outside the station building when operations resumed. We did get this weird reduced view from the drone show, but as you can see it happens right above the ride, so there's no way they could run it while this is happening. The operations resume after 10 p.m. Of course, some test trains went out and there's a general bit of faffing. The ride kind of went up again at about 10 past 10 on the night we experienced this. They do reopen the queue line for a bit, so there is a small window when the drone show finishes to 10 o'clock when the queue lines close to get in line. Even though the park closes at 10 p.m, if you're in line before the park closes, so by 10 p.m, you will get to ride, no matter how long the queue is. And of course, they allowed the fast lane guests to re-enter the queue. Here is a team member bravely leading the swarm of fast lane guests behind her up to the station. So if you want to make sure you're getting a ride, ideally I think you need to be in line before the first cut-off at 9:30, but you do have a very small window, maybe 5 minutes or so, from 9:55 after the fireworks and the drones are finished to 10 p.m, where they do reopen it before the park closes at 10 p.m. So get in line before 9:30 would be my advice. The fast lane guests were given priority. I think they largely tried to clear that queue line before letting the normal guests, as in the peasant line, onto the trains. We boarded the train at 10:40 p.m. My early review of the Beast wasn't overly favourable. I do think it is a great ride, but when it seems to lunge towards tearing off, a trim will come along and keep the fun in check. Added to this, there is actually lighting around the ride course, so even though it dives deep into the woodland, you can actually see where you're going thanks to a skyline of flood lighting. So it's not really a full night ride experience like found on Holiday World's Voyage or Kings Island's own Mystic Timbers, where you go off into the darkness. I do think it's one of those rites of passage that you probably should experience as a foodie, and if you're at Kings Island, it is obviously a quintessential Kings Island experience to do a Beast Night Ride. As a wooden coaster, it definitely does warm up as the day progresses, so in the evening it is running a bit faster than it does in the daytime. It is a nuts ride, it's the world's longest roller coaster after all, and of course many people really do rate this experience, so ignore my grumpy opinion on it as always. Make your own mind up, I'm sure you'll have a bucket load of fun. Overall, we had a fantastic day at Kings Island. It's such a large, sprawling park with oodles of charm. If it's your first visit, I'd definitely recommend at least 2 days to try and pace the park, especially getting on and seeing and experiencing everything it has to offer. Sadly, the blue elephant in the room, the Eiffel Tower, was closed on the day we visited, which was such a shame, especially when you're a content creator that needs that B-roll footage from above. We scored 11 out of 15 on Coaster Bingo, missing the free accessible kids creds and the Invertigo. I'm not too mad about that, with the kids creds largely being over half an hour for most of the day and the Invertigo was at 45 to 60 minutes, which was just a little too much compared to the waits for the other better roller coasters. So coming up next time, we're driving north to Pittsburgh to visit one of America's most charming amusement parks. It's Kennywood, a kangaroo mascot and kangaroo bouncing airtime on their collection of historic rides. How are they holding up after 100 years of operation? Still to come in the series, we'll also visit the sweet Hershey Park and take our last rides on King Dakar. Make sure you're subscribed as you don't want to miss those episodes dropping. In the future, I'll be putting together a summary of the road trip with tips to plan your own roller coaster road trip. So if you do have any questions, please do leave them in the comments below. Thank you for watching if you have been, and until next time, stay safe on the way out and back.